So, ladies and gentlemen, fanboys and girls, nerds, weebs, and otaku, welcome back and welcome home.
Hello there, Apple Bites. This is your Apple Bite Written Writ Ralph talking to you straight from our show here, The Written Writ. A show where you and you will get creative, have fun, geek out, and all the beautiful good things. Tonight we got a plethora of people. We got Tavarez over here. We got Michael. We got Frank. Yes, it's going to be a blast. And I got to say right away, it's like Tavarez and Tavarez.
Oh, yeah. Brothers from a different mother, for sure.
Well, even a different letter at the end because, you know...
Yeah, you never know.
And Anthony's right there, all right away, going, "What's up, all y'all?" All right, folks. Let's see. Well, you know what we're gonna do? You know what? We will start with you, Tavarez. Tell the people all the good stuff. Give them the spiel. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm running a Kickstarter that collects issues 1 through 6 of my series Nomads. We're kind of at the end of the road here. We got a long way to go, but 3 days left, but I ain't no quitter. And so I'm going to promote it to the very end. It's a series I've been working on for, I published it in 2021 and I've been working my way on it ever since. And it is for this Kickstarter, it's 172 pages of story. It is action adventure. I like to kind of pitch it to people as Mad Max meets Conan the Barbarian. It takes place 2,000 years in the future that has returned to the primal. The main character, Hawk, goes searching for his family after a botched hunt, and he has to travel into enemy territory filled with monsters, mutants, and killer robots. Along the way, he makes a bond with the mighty Boar King, who swears an oath to protect him and to help him find his tribe. So it's kind of like, I always say the Mad Max meets Conan the Barbarian because it is 2,000 years in the future, but it's kind of got more of like a natural bend to it. But as they venture out farther and farther, they start to encounter remnants from the past civilization. So that's where the robots come in. You see in this sample here, this is in issue 5. He trades out his bow and arrow for it's like a laser bow that he's able to fight some of these robots with, because as you would imagine, a stone tip arrow does not do very well against something made out of metal.
Exactly.
Yeah, it bounce right off or something.
Oh yeah,
the artwork's great, man. It's really good.
Thank you. Yeah. So one of the things about Nomads, so while I did the first Kickstarter in 2021, but I've been working on the series for a lot longer. It's kind of how I taught myself how to make comics, how to go from, because I've drawn my whole life, pen, pencil, paper, watercolor. But it was really my first foray into doing like digital art. So learning how to clean up the panels, how to digitally paint, and then also how to put a whole book together. Because up until that point, we had kind of just scanned stuff in, printed it out, folded it, stapled it. But Nomads is kind of like those. It's where I cut my teeth. That's how I always tell people. It's how I cut my teeth on comics. And it's where I was able to experiment with different techniques and styles. So even the series like kind of starts out in the Stone Age, right?
Mhm.
They're wearing like furs and feathers and using stone tip arrows, and by the end of it, they're battling robots. And it's kind of similar in my approach as I went from pencils and very rough pencils at first, and then working my way up and developing my skills and my tools.
I gotta ask, were you tempted? Because I know how the creative mind is. Were you tempted now that you're making this full book, going, wait, I can fix some stuff?
Oh, absolutely. So that's kind of one of the big things about this. So that first ash can I did was 13 pages, and I didn't even ink it. I had just colored over the raw pencils, and for this release, I went ahead and expanded that first chapter. I made it a full 20 pages, and I totally redrew it on my social media, on my Instagram, my Facebook. I've been posting compare and contrast, so showing the original page what it looked like before, and then what it looks like now with the redraw. And the redraw is actually kind of interesting because it was something I was messing around with
Right.
about a year or so ago, and I wasn't sure if I was even going to release it. But I was kind of feeling like we're getting on like the 5-year anniversary, and I wanted to do something kind of special. And I also wanted to kind of bring up that first chapter to the same level and kind of make the book whole. So yeah, absolutely. But nothing's changed. I actually used the originals as my layouts for the redraw.
Well, you said you extended the ash can, so
I did.
added material.
Yeah, so it's got added material. Sorry, my cat is climbing all over me.
Oh, well, that happens here all the time. So
Yeah, he's my supervisor, Ed, my editor. He's always like hanging out with me when I'm drawing and stuff. So yeah, I added some pages. Basically, did an extended intro.
right.
In the original, in the preview that I probably sent you, it opens up pretty quick. It's almost media res. It's Hawk's first steps out of his home territory, and almost immediately he's jumped on by a taro bird. It's like a pterodactyl. It's a mutant bird, and then he's just thrust into this this world that wants to eat him. And so what I did is I added some pages to kind of give a little more room for him to breathe before he, gets into all that chaos of the wasteland.
Also, here's a quick question for you, because I know we're taught, especially when we're doing comics, that we should start with something major, throw it at the people, give them something to put their teeth into. Do you think which approach did you like better? Did you like the fact that you were able to come in slow on it, or did you like the fast approach from before?
Well, maybe I misspoke, because he still is encountering nature, and I don't want to spoil too much of it. It's definitely shows. I guess the better way to explain it is it gives more of a showcase of Hawk's abilities and his skills.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so that's a little bit better way of explaining it than slowly.
Well,
But
the question is still there, though. What do you think is better? Do you think of the slow approach? Because I know some comic guys like to build and start and go, and then some guys just throw you into the fire.
yeah, so it's kind of like a project by project basis, and so I think it's better for Nomads, for instance, because it is a much more action oriented story. It is a nonstop chase of predator versus prey, the entire story. So for that, I think it benefits from the action, from seeing what the characters can do, and really what kind of teeth this world has.
Right. And it's always one of those questions that because there's always that fight between both sides. It's like, no, come in slowly. No, throw it in there.
Oh yeah, because sometimes a slow burn is very appropriate.
Yeah.
I worked on another series called Motor City Mo, and that's a 5-issue. I always called it a noir romance story, but it still deals with a character who has superhuman abilities. But the way that it's set up is much more of a slow burn. The first issue is much more about establishing the mood and the tone
Right.
of the character,
Which is
and then
important. Yeah.
you start to peel back the layers, and really by the 5th issue, it really hits you hard.
I love that approach. But I'm a big noir fan, and I love that whole getting into the mood, figuring out what the world is, getting into that mood of that world. Sin City style.
Exactly. I'm into that too. I like it all. So I'm just like, I love that storytelling process.
Mm-hmm.
I love comics because just as a writer artist, as someone who may not have the resources to do a whole full-on production,
Right.
I can do all this stuff myself, and I can tell those different kinds of stories. And that's kind of one of the things, is like Nomads is like a fantasy Conan story,
Mm-hmm.
but I have other stories in me. I'm not like a one-trick pony. So and I think that's the great thing about comics.
Oh, definitely. It lends itself to so many different things. I feel like the people that are kind of pigeonhole it into just superhero genre, kind of like do a disservice to comics.
Oh yeah, but there's room for all of it.
Oh, there's room for everything.
That's the best part. And especially like manga. I'm really big into manga as well. And they always say, anything you can think of, anything that you're into, any interest you have, there's a story, there's a comic out there, or a manga out there. So.
Oh, completely. Yeah, I'm showing off your things here.
Oh yeah. And so that's the other thing too, is like, it's not my first rodeo. I've done 3 Kickstarters myself. I've been a part of dozens of Kickstarters. And one of my favorite things to do is actually be able to provide original art. So what the highest tier, I allow you to actually buy pages from the book.
Right.
And I work traditionally with my line work. So my colors are digital, but my inks are traditional. And it's a real physical thing that you can own, that you can collect. I also like to show them off at shows and stuff. So when people come through, they can kind of see the line art, and then also see like the final piece in the book, and it's kind of a cool experience.
It's like having a commercial for yourself. Yeah, I get it.
Or like even like a behind the scenes sort of thing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I see the stretch goals here.
Yeah. So the idea with that was, so I really wanted to try to do a hardcover release of the book. The book is still going to be printed. Still going to do a paperback edition.
Right.
I was trying to collect this first half into a hardcover, so the stretch goals were intended to kind of incentivize and add
to
to
push
that.
it forward. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what you got to do. You got to play the long game.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yep. And so this is a page from that extended intro, and it's from when Hawk is still in the forests of the Lush, and kind of hinting at what's to come, hinting at what Hawk's abilities are, and again, giving some room for the character himself to kind of to show his stuff.
I see what you mean. It really shows off who he is, what he's doing, and all the good stuff. That way you get an idea of what the hero is before he jumps into the fracas or the main story.
Yeah, the fray. Here is the ranks of the man-eaters. So they are outcasts from other tribes and other clans, and they've banded together, and they're trying to take over territory. They prey on whoever they can, and they're a bad bunch. And primarily they're chasing after the Boar King. They're trying to take over his territory, and as you can see, that some of them have guns and rifles, and they ride around on dire wolves, and this part is very Mad Max inspired, because it's very much like a chase through the desert as they try to escape the clutches of Thresh.
Right. Beautiful art.
Thank you so much.
Colors are just they give so much to the story.
Which is kind of ironic because when I started, like I said, I hadn't really done too much digital coloring, so I was kind of learning, and I always felt like my colors were the kind of like the weak link. But this story really pushed me to expand my color palette and really experiment. One of the things so when I was coming up, and I mean, you could say even still now, a lot of comics were colored very naturally.
Yeah.
So a lot of like browns, a lot of grays, which there's a place for it. I don't have any problem with it, but there was a lot of it. And then especially with like post-apocalyptic stories, Nomads is post-apocalyptic, but it leans more into fantasy and the fantastic.
Right.
And the colors kind of reflect that. So depending on like the chapter where Hawk is at, I try to be very conscious about the color palette. Like for instance, this is from issue 6, Deaths of the Dead, in which Hawk finds a civilization in a mountain. And during the cataclysm, they tried to rebuild society in the safety of this mountain, but things go horribly wrong. And Hawk has to venture through this village of the dead. And for this one, I really leaned more into like the cool, cold colors versus those earlier issues that are in the desert. Those are all hot, yellow, oranges, very warm. And you can even see something I was trying to be conscious about is that like the only warmth is coming from Hawk's
the fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it because it gives each location its own feel.
Exactly. I've had someone bring it up kind of like almost like the levels of a video game. Like,
definitely.
Played like Metroid or whatever as you go deeper and deeper into the...
Gets darker and darker.
Yeah.
And of course, here is the creator. You've been doing this now for like what, 5 issues, 6 issues?
So 6 issues. I'm working on the volume 2 now. I'm hoping to have that done by next year. So the Hawk story encapsulates about 12 issues in total. So we're at the halfway point.
It's a good place to start and try to put a book together. Yeah. So is this book more for those who haven't jumped on yet?
Yes.
Or is there something there for those who have bought it already?
Yes, absolutely. Try to add lots more in. I also I'm doing there's going to be an artist gallery in the back, so I have lots of cool pinups from my friends and other indie creators.
See, that's what I like to hear. You want to, because you're some of your guys are going to get it anyway because they like to get the big book. So give them something.
Oh yeah.
So let's see where you are. You are at 2,764.
Yeah, quite a ways to go for that hardcover. But still, regardless, if we can make the hardcover, that'll be amazing. That'll be awesome. That's what I want to do. But looking at if we don't, it's probably going to be more like a March or April release for this, a retail release.
Right.
Partnering up with Source Point Press on that.
Oh, look, it went up.
But this is your opportunity. If we can make this happen, you can get the book before it hits retail, and you get the Kickstarter exclusive hardcover.
So you saw that, folks. It went up right now. So thank you.
That was me.
Oh man, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
You sold me on it while I was here. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It was always fun to see the numbers go up.
Oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of support from people and a lot of kind words. Been getting a lot of cool fan art and stuff. So, regardless, no matter what happens, like I've been saying, win, lose, or draw, Nomads forever.
And I like the title, Nomads. It's always that whole feeling of people who just roam on their own, usually, not in a group, but you can have a group of nomads.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I envision this as a whole world. So, primarily right now, Hawk's story is 12 issues, but you never know. There's a lot of stories that I could tell in that world because it really is a whole expansive world with its own flora and fauna and different tribes of nomads. So
Love it. Love what you got here. The art is just on par. I saw that like after I talked to you that you guys you're with Source Point Press. I was like, oh, okay.
yeah, yep. So
They're
yeah,
they're friends of
partnering
ours
up with
here.
them,
So.
and yeah, looking forward to a wider release for this.
Definitely. I can't wait to see what you do with this. All right, Michael.
The artwork is good. Artwork's great.
Amazing. Yeah. Michael, it is your turn to give him the spiel. So go for it.
So I'm writing doing the first issue of a series called Friday Night Bigfoot, which is set in Portland in 1985, and it's a wrestling promoter whose family-owned promotion is struggling, and
Look at that.
They find Bigfoot and teach him how to wrestle, and
That's kind of cool. I like that.
we open the story with Bigfoot in rehab doing yoga. So if you want to get an idea of
that's the way to start, man.
What the story is like. But I'm co-creating this with Gangrel from WWE, or
that's
former
awesome.
WWE wrestler. He's big Bigfoot enthusiast. So I write a series called Tales from the Road where I co-create short stories with different wrestlers, and Dave was one of the first guys that we had done a story with. Like I had done maybe fourth or fifth, and I had met him at a show, and he was sat next to me. His table was next to mine, and he just came up and he goes, "Listen," he goes, I've heard about the comics that you do. He goes, "I totally want to do one," and he's like, "I just got one word for you, Bigfoot." I'm like, all right, let's hear it. And so as the weekend went on, we just kind of riffed ideas back and forth, and it's super fun. And then we, sort of came up with this sort of seeds of a story. And so at the time, the books were being made for like a wrestling subscription crate, and they were 6 pages. We did a 6-page story, and but we always kind of wanted to do more. And then in 2019, there was a company called Comic Stream that was a startup. They had recruited like all these like A-list creators, but they also recruited me, who was not an A-list creator, and they wanted to do Bigfoot. And I was going to do it with Josh Adams, Neil's son, and they were going to pay us an ungodly amount of money to make it. And then the pandemic hit, and all their investors pulled out. Wow. Which was nuts because it was like a digital comics platform with like sound and effects and stuff. And like, you're like, man, that was your moment, right? Like stores are closed, people need stuff at home, but whatever. I don't know. I will never not be surprised by by how dumb people with money are. So then it just kind of sat there for a minute, and Dave and I we always wanted to do more, and so I had a bunch of other things that I was working on, and he had some stuff. So then we kind of came back to it, and then we got Tony Grigori, who's just finished up Rick and Morty for IDW to do the art for it. He's a big wrestling fan.
Nice.
You can see Bigfoot doing yoga and taking a shit. But that's how the book opens. It's there's a lot of different little elements to it, right? It's a family-owned promotion. The father was sort of ran it for years, and he passed away, and then it went to the middle son.
Right.
The oldest son is the champion, and then the youngest son is like sort of the hot up and coming rookie. There's a lot of age gap between them. There's a reason for that. But like, I love wrestling history, and this is very much like the last two territories were the kind of existed were Portland and Memphis. And Portland, Memphis largely existed because of just how over Jerry Lawler was as a babyface. But like Portland had this just like weird vibe to it, and like there were all these guys that were big there that sort of never made it anywhere else.
Interesting.
But they also had like Roddy Piper, obviously made his name there.
Yeah.
Whatever. Lots of cool guys too. Like the guy that always fascinates me is Playboy Buddy Rose. Was sort of like a joke in a lot of places because he was so out of shape, but an incredible wrestler, and he was an incredible wrestler in Portland for the territory. So there's a lot of nods to the Portland territory, and to just territory wrestling in general. I always think it's a fascinating time just because 99% of what went on wouldn't be able to fly today just with the advent of smartphones. There's just enough sort of shadows in the corners for people to do some dirt and to do some stuff. But, so the promotion it's a, a long-standing promotion, and now it's sort of hit some hard times. Obviously the father dies unexpectedly and the son's not really prepared to take over, but he's doing his best. And then you have like an outlaw territory coming up, and then you have like the big sort of WWE type corporate national juggernaut coming through, and then you have drugs coming into Portland right around the same time. So he's just sort of beset on all sides,
right,
by all these different challenges. And as it turns out, the answer to these challenges is Bigfoot. All the fans think Bigfoot's a guy in a suit, right? Like, but obviously it's the real Bigfoot who has reasons for wanting to participate in this as well. And then, wrestling attracts, particularly in the 80s, attracted a lot of tough, big alpha male types. And they were still, a lot of them were seduced by the limelight, by the women, by the drugs, whatever. And, so it'll be fun to see what happens when Bigfoot gets it's been out in the, living out in the woods for years, and now all of a sudden there's some bright lights and some adulation and, whatever. It'd be interesting to see if maybe he turns into a dick backstage.
It would be interesting to see. But, it all corrupts, like you were just saying.
Yeah. So, I really like my stories to be, grounded. So like there's a lot of like everything that sort of exists with the exception of Bigfoot is sort of real and authentic for the time period.
I kind of like that though, because you got this surreal aspect of the story, but at the same time it's all grounded in the reality of the thing.
And it's the type of thing that everybody can relate to. Even if you don't know a lot about wrestling, you'll be able to understand what they're sort of going through. And then there's the family dynamic. Every part of the family works for the promotion. So, like the mom is taking tickets and, the middle son is promoting and all that. So like there's a family element to it. There's a crime element to it. There's a little something for everybody. I just very excited about the series. I'm excited about actually going to like Bigfoot festivals to try to sell this later on after we get it made. And
I'm sure you do very well with that.
I do.
You got already Pate here going, as someone from the land of Bigfoot, this is what I'm here for.
I just I do like 30 shows a year, and
you are a busy man.
it's a grind. I just did GalaxyCon Columbus this past weekend. And that was my last show for this year. And then we started back up. But I'd like to sort of, integrate some stuff. And I thought maybe doing some creature festivals and some horror cons and stuff. Because I also have a book that I'm writing with Vampiro that's out in stores now. And that I can take to horror cons too.
Vampiro everywhere.
It's a lot of fun. That's a totally different thing, but it's I don't know how I ended up doing two projects with two vampire wrestlers at the same time, but we just made a deal. Issue 2 just came out. We made a deal to have it developed for television.
Nice.
I'm excited about that. I was in GalaxyCon Columbus, and like Danny Trejo was there and knows Vampiro or knows about Vampiro and was like super into looking at it. So that was cool. But yeah. So I don't know, but it's I'm real excited about the prospect of the story, and
right,
we got a lot of fun things lined up. I've got a good hard plan for 12 issues, and then kind of depending on how the readership develops, we'll see where to take it. Like if it's supported more by wrestling fans, then maybe we'll go one way, but if it ends up being supported more by Bigfoot cryptid fans, maybe we'll do something different. I don't know. I got
That's a good way to go. Let's see what happens.
I got a couple of different paths it can go after the first 12.
Well,
but,
sounds very well put together.
Well, I mean, we've been working on it forever. I mean, it's just sort of, I mean, the little mini comic, I think, came out in 2016, and then the comic stream was 2019, 2020, and then, we've been kind of putzing around. Like, I've been Tony's wanted to do the art on it, so we were waiting for our schedules to sync up and whatnot. So, and I'm always just running a million miles an hour on stuff. So, but yeah, it's I'm excited for it. I know it means a lot to Dave, to Gangrel. He's a big Bigfoot guy, and he really wants to see this succeed too. So we're we're out here trying to.
I got one word for you, Bigfoot. You know where this is coming from.
I mean, the conversations that we had that first weekend. I mean, Dave directed porn at one point, like so like he's got some ideas. some of those ideas will never make it into the book. But I mean, we laughed all weekend, so it was good. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited about it, and I feel like there's been a lot of enthusiasm. The other thing we have is probably I've been making comics for almost 15 years now, and I think we made the coolest piece of merchandise we've ever made. I think if you scroll down, you'll see it. It's a T-shirt that we designed for this series. Just go all the way.
Gangrel.
That's Gangrel.
That's an interesting cast of characters.
We also have some incredible covers. Maria Wolf, I think, is one of the, if not the best, she's one of the best cover artists in comics, and she did just an incredible job. Will Robson, we did a riff with the sort of famous Bigfoot picture with Andy Malinger, and then Tony did a 80s sort of wrestling magazine kind of riff on it. So the covers are all fun, and then we have some limited edition metal versions of those.
Nice.
People that are into collectibles. And then the shirt is just down a little bit from here.
I love that.
This thing right here.
That's awesome.
This is one of my favorite pieces of merchandise we've ever made. So when I started and I just had one book, we used to have headlock shirts, and they always did pretty good, but like you have to bring a lot of them, and it takes up a lot of space in the luggage. And now I have so many books. I can't even bring the number of books that I want to bring to a show for each type. So I haven't brought shirts to stuff for a while, but I feel like I might take this puppy out on the road with me.
Now, sorry, got tongue tied there. How far do you go on to shows? Do you go all
I was a guest at a show in Australia this year. I went to Alaska this year.
Wow.
Albuquerque, San Diego. I live in upstate New York, so been a little bit of everywhere. But yeah, I have. So thankfully now, because I smartened up and just started using one airline instead of just using whatever was cheapest at the time. I now have status on American, and I can bring 3 bags to shows plus a carry-on. So that helps, but it's still not enough. Like, because you always want to have a bunch of everything, because you never know what's going to sell in a different place. So, I have 4 headlock trades. I have 3 Tales from the Road trades. Now we have 2 issues of Vampiro out. I have a buttload of Tales from the Road singles.
Yeah, your table is like, I know I see you at New York Comic Con, and you probably bring more stuff there, but your tables are usually huge. You have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to the point now where I can easily fill 2 full tables with stuff, and then once this comes out, that's going to have some space. So it's definitely stuff I got to wrestle with as to what to do with how to get the most out of my space. And then we have, we do art prints, we do comic book style art prints for wrestlers, and do some autograph stuff, which is like my firewall against people who refuse to read. Some people are at a Comic-Con and they're like, I don't read.
I know.
All right, well,
I've gotten that line before.
Well, here, read this autograph. This was signed by Sting, and that sort of helps, it sort of helps keeps us
wrestling.
keeps us going. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
some of these booths are expensive. The
Oh,
New York Comic Con booth is $10,000. It's
Wow.
insane.
Yeah, but the New York Comic Con booth and the whole New York Comic Con experience, because I've helped you out with it.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it really is.
And,
I mean,
you are constantly like ransacked, and there's so much people around.
but it's so much fun too because you know, like what the thing I love about New York especially is like, you know, we'll have a bunch of wrestlers there, and there's always going to be people that don't pay attention to who's going to be on the list or whatever, and they come walking through and they'll see like a Mick Foley or a Booker T or somebody from their childhood, and you just see them light up immediately, you know.
That was
that's
my
always
favorite
been
moment when I was helping you with the lines. That was my favorite moment because somebody will pass by and go, "Look, it's Sergeant Slaughter!"
Right. And like, you know, that makes it's very important to me because like when I started doing this, like a lot of cons didn't allow wrestling at all.
Yeah.
We were the first wrestling thing at like probably 20 different Comic Cons that had like a wrestler band. And, you know, I would be like, oh, I want to come to the show. And they'd be like, oh, sure. You know, you get a table, whatever. And I'm like, well, I want to bring Jerry Lawler with me. And they're like, oh, well, we don't allow wrestlers. I'm like, but he did the art to my covers. And so then they'd bring us and put us in like Artist Alley. And it'd be ridiculous, right? Because there'd be all these pictures of artists and then Jerry with his crown on. And we, you know, they'd put us in Artist Alley and we'd jam the place up, and then they'd move us to the floor, and then they'd start booking wrestlers. So like,
You saw what you were doing.
you know, and I mean, just, you know, I've told the story a lot, but like when I first pitched Headlock, like I got laughed at by like publishers and whatever, like there was no place for wrestling in comics and all this nonsense. So like,
Mike, I'm happy you brought that up because we for some reason the last 2 weeks has been, you know, very wrestling in that direction, and I asked this question because to me it makes total sense. Wrestling comics makes complete sense. It's just, to me, it's just superheroes doing their thing in the ring. You know, so I don't get it. It's the same type of stories. It's the same. So why do you think there's this thing where you know, because I feel like there should be more wrestling in comics or more wrestling superheroes, or you know, but I also grew up with Mil Máscara, the Saint, you know, and again, they're Spanish wrestlers, but they were big heroes.
Yeah, luchadores, man. The man,
Exactly.
the man,
100%.
wrestlers. They're absolutely superheroes.
it's well, it's fun. It's what we're doing with Vampiro. I say it's like a Santo movie if it was directed by Robert Rodriguez, but it's you know, I think a lot of, like when Comic Cons sort of started to blow up, right? Like Comic Cons used to just be some guy that, you know, one of the local guys that had a comic book store would run a, you know, Holiday Inn ballroom, and there'd be like 500 people.
Yep.
And they just, you know, you're just in the bubble, right? So like wrestling was always very polarizing. It's not so much anymore. I mean, now it's as mainstream as it's ever been, but for a long time, even like I grew up through the Hogan and the Austin eras, and like, even when it was popular, it wasn't cool. No. You know what I mean? Like you go to school and people still make fun of you. So,
especially if you wore the wrestling shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
no doubt. So it's different now, but like back then, you just had these people. Like Comic Con started to blow up, and then you had these guys that you know, all they did was, you know, they ran a comic book store and they had a, you know, a small Hollywood or Holiday Inn ballroom, and now they've got these big convention centers, and they're just not ready for it. I mean, Jerry and I got turned down as late as 2019 for shows because they don't want wrestlers.
Wow.
You know, I was at a show and a guy tried to bring Piper to the show, and the show promoter only knew him as the guy from They Live and said no. And then he died that year.
That's messed up.
So, I mean, it's been a weird fight, but also, right, like WWE hasn't successfully made a comic book ever, like one that's lasted like a long running thing. So like, as the direct market has gotten more, like it's almost like, it's interesting because the art form, right? Like so many people are making so many cool comics and so many different types of comics. Like I feel like it's never been better as an art form, but like as a business, right? Like you just have like these superhero fans that sort of are consuming the same titles and they want the same things, and it's sort of you have to, they've seen it all, they've done it all, you know. And I operate from a very different perspective. I don't sell my books in comic stores. I mean, if people buy from me directly, they do, but I don't put my stuff in Diamond. I do mostly direct to consumer, but I also make sure that my shit is accessible.
Yeah.
So like, if you don't know anything, you can pick it up and read it. Like I read X-Men for years and then I stopped, and then I don't know, recently I picked one up and like there's an infographic in the front of it. Like I don't want that out of my comic books. Like I want to have, you know, and that's why I try to write fun, you know, fun. I don't want to say simple, but like,
No,
you know,
you
fun,
got to
easy
be
stuff.
fun.
You know what I mean? That you can
Exactly.
enjoy yourself, right? Like I don't need some overwrought drama or whatever. Like because it's just now that everybody's seen everything, then it just the stakes get higher and higher and higher to the point where, you know, they're like, oh, it's Galactus with the ultimate nullifier taped to his head. What are we gonna do? It's just too much. So I don't know. Like I said,
I think comics need to take a thing from wrestling, because wrestling does that. They build themselves up to a certain point, but then everything comes back down and everything gets normal for a while. And then they build back up. I feel like comics used to do that, but they don't do that anymore.
well, because the audience has been there forever and they're so hardcore. And like when you get like, I think fans are great, right? But then when you get into like the stands or the super fans or whatever,
Yeah.
it gets crazy, you know. So I've got friends that write for Marvel and DC, and like people are harassing them because they want their favorite character to beat everybody's ass.
Yeah.
But it's not really what you want, right? Because they did that, like from a wrestling standpoint, they did that with John Cena for years.
Yeah.
He didn't sell anything, he beat everybody, and people hated it.
Yeah.
So, but you know, when you put their characters through the slightest bit of turmoil, people are upset about it. So there's no real easy answer, because of everything for years has been a Band-Aid on a Band-Aid on a Band-Aid. And now you're just here. You're here, you know, you have this like super hardcore fan base that's read everything, knows all the crossovers. And then when you try to get like a newbie in, there's all this crazy continuity, and what title do you start from, and
gatekeeping.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. So
Dude.
I try to avoid all that, and I think you know, I see people go to Comic-Cons all the time. I see a lot of like, you know, pros and whatever always complaining that Comic-Cons aren't for comics, but
no,
do very well at Comic-Cons, and
because Comic-Cons has become everything else.
Yeah, but I mean, they're still pop culture fans, and you can still sell to them. But I mean, if you're selling 70 years of convoluted continuity, and you got to pull out a 6-piece infographic so they can understand the next 22 pages, like that's tough. I mean, because people, you know, people got a lot of options to do stuff for free, right? You can watch YouTube all day, play Fortnite, whatever. So like, you need people to pay you money, because this is like analog shit.
Yeah.
So like, you gotta make it worth their time. So it's just tough, you know, in a way that maybe wrestling doesn't belong in the direct market. So, because obviously, I mean, nobody's made wrestling comics longer than I have, and I haven't done it. So it's what it is, I guess, you know.
I always think the same thing. I was a fan of everything, you know. I got beat up for all of it. I got beat up for the wrestling. I got beat up for the heavy metal. I got beat up for the D&D. I got beat up for all. I was the total nerd geek from the 80s TV movies.
But isn't it amazing like how things come full circle, right? Like things that like we all liked, people like DC and Marvel back in the 80s and 90s, right? 2000s, right? And then when we all went to school, people would pick on you because you're wearing, you know, a Hulk Hogan shirt or a Piper shirt or whatever. Things come full circle, and then what do you see people wearing? The nostalgia and the Marvel and the DC and the Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers and the wrestling.
Yeah.
What do people go for to cons to see? Wrestling, you know, get those signatures of Sting or Kurt Angle or whomever, right? You know, that you see them pop up. I mean, I'm a Long Island guy. Mick Foley pops up all over the place around the country.
He was just next to me in Columbus this week.
Yeah. I think he's going to Richmond GalaxyCon.
Yeah, in the 30th.
You know,
yeah, next year.
And I mean, he's great. I mean, I've seen him, and usually he comes over and supports me. He'll get like I signed like 2 of my books when he was in.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
He's a really good dude.
Yeah.
You know, he's just very down to earth, and he'll take time with the fans, which is what he does now. He gives back to the fans to take the time to sit there and listen. I mean, he's probably about the only person that I really know like that. I mean, I'm also friends with Ken Scott from Ninja Turtles, so he's another guy like that, right? Like, he'll take the time and he appreciates the fans that go up to him, and he's like, oh, he's like, making of the Ninja Turtle movies was awesome. He's like, you did a great job playing Raphael, right? And he takes the time, and he's very thankful to the fans, which, it's like, you like to see that within people, whether it's an athlete, your favorite baseball or basketball player, football player, whatever, wrestler, or a movie star or a musician. You like to see that. And there's not enough stories of that. There are stories out there like that, but there's just not enough. You always hear, oh, this guy was a douchey or whatever, but for the most part, I think there's probably more good stories than bad. But I mean, I seen a guy that was in AwesomeCon in DC, and he was selling replicas of LODs, spiked. He was making like replicas of that.
Mm.
I'm like, that's crazy, you know.
In my mind, I don't know. I do a lot of conventions, and then obviously being attached to Jerry, I spend a lot of time in like the celebrity green rooms and shit, just places I got no business being. But I think by and large, some celebrities can be touchy, but I think more of them are good than bad.
Oh,
And
I agree. I agree.
The one thing that sometimes happens that I think people aren't necessarily prepared for is, so Hayden Christensen was at GalaxyCon Columbus. He signed till midnight.
Yeah.
Because he was there for one day. It's
about
insane.
to tell you the same story because he did the same thing in, what is it? It was one of the fan expos. It was either Boston or Philly, and I forgot which one it was. But I think he did 2 days there. I don't remember. And each year, I mean, Boston Fan Expo was in a different convention center because the Boston Convention Center was getting remodeled, so it's going back into the original one. But he was at either that one or Philly, and he came and he was signing until like 10 o'clock. The line was ridiculous, but I'm not a big Star Wars fan. Like, I watched movies. I haven't watched the last few. Just haven't had time, haven't got around to it, right? But I mean, I've heard people, it's like, oh, I've heard stories that he's not good, but like, I'm like, and I'll defend the guy, don't even know him, but I'm like, no, I said, that's not the case. Whatever you hear, I said, whenever people come to these expos, like, he's literally signed, and I tell people that he's done that, and he doesn't have to do that. He's getting whatever, he's getting his, check from, the convention center, but he doesn't have
Frank,
to.
I think people, and I really believe this, people can't separate the role from the actor.
I agree.
They come at these actors like they're the role that they're playing. And then when they find out, or when we get these stories where you hear that he's doing all these nice things, people are like, oh no, that's just the front, that's just an act. I'm like, dude,
No, that's listen. If you didn't appreciate, like I always say, and then when people come back and saying something like that, I'm like, listen, stars, musicians, whatever, wrestling, sports, the fans are what make you, right? Like, you go to see the Yankees and playing, with Aaron Judge. You go see the Cardinals with Albert Pujols. I only make that reference because I'm a Cardinal fan. So, but like, you support your star. They have to have the talent to do whatever they're doing, right? Whether it's choreographing a wrestling match, which you can't make any mistakes doing that. That's a one take kind of thing, um, or you're supporting your favorite actress or actor doing whatever they're doing. I feel some of them don't get enough love, and I guess it's the way of the world, right? We just as people criticize, and people don't know the stories behind the stories.
It
Kind
goes
of,
back to what Michael was saying. These super fans or these guys have kind of taken over. You know, all the fandoms and all this stuff, and it's
right?
become like really toxic. Uh,
Yeah, I
I
Mike,
agree.
also think a lot of it's just jealousy. There's a lot of people that, I do panels about breaking into comics, and I tell people all the time, like people come up to me all the time, like, oh, I wish I had, I had an idea for a comic that was just like The Walking Dead, whatever, but they did it first. And, listen, Walking Dead's a good comic. I got them all on my shelf right here, but it ain't Shakespeare. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, you could have done that, right? But like people let their fear of, like if you're going to be a creator, you have to give yourself permission to suck for
exactly.
a little while until
Most
you can
people
get
can't
good.
even get the pen to the paper.
Right. Well, some of these guys can't even put their face on an avatar.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Ideas are a dime a dozen, but
There-
you have to actually make the thing. You have to
Right.
actually make it. It doesn't matter if you had the same idea as Walking Dead or whatever. You
No,
didn't do it. You
and
didn't do it.
that's what I tell people. I'm like, it could have been you.
100%. If you're creating, if you're a writer, if you're making a comic book, if you're, some type of artist, you could say, "Oh, I could have done that." Yeah, but you didn't. So like, if you like ideas, like when I do go to different Comic Cons, I bump into like artists and I'm sorry, writers that like, oh, I don't know, how did you get your book together? I don't know, just kind of
wrote
put it
it.
together.
I
I
did
say
it.
I don't know, I didn't know anybody in the business, still don't know too many, and I'm like, I just kind of,
See, but it's funny because
pick it up on the way.
these are the same people that will right away tell you, well, that's just like this, or this is just like that. But it kind of isn't it? And people are reading it, people are liking it. You're just upset because that other person did the same kind of story as Walking Dead. They got their own zombies, and it's doing well. Yet you didn't do your thing, and now this guy is successful. So you're kind of upset. Like, I got a story. I'm like, do the story.
Oh, I mean, 99% of, I feel like 99% of the evils that are perpetrated on the world are mediocre dudes who are mad that they're mediocre and they're looking to blame somebody for it. And it just goes. And then, and then there's the women that they've gaslit.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, I don't know. And I see it. Like, I remember being sort of young and insecure, and you're trying to protect yourself and whatever, but like, some people never achieve any sort of, whatever, like happiness with their existence. So,
well, I think also too, a lot of people get discouraged because they think they got to hit it big or make $1 million to even justify doing it. Right. But there's a lot of value in just pursuing
Doing
it.
100%.
Just making something for you, even if a bunch of people don't see it, but getting to the point where, if comics is what you love, if that's what you love making, why don't you try to put something together one page at a time and learn and fail and do something bad first and then build on it? That's the thing, is like, you got to keep going. You do one page. Like for me, like when I first started, I didn't know how to make any of this stuff. It wasn't like, you have to learn how to do it. You have to make it badly. And then you look at it and say, well, why didn't this work? Well, I'm going to do this differently next time. And then you build up that way. But a lot of people just don't have the wherewithal to fail. They can't handle the thought of failing. So they don't even try. And
Well,
then
I think you have people in your life too that will tell you, oh, don't do that. Don't waste your time with that. Because they're like that.
Oh, I hate those people.
Very much. Well, we could, but it's true. Like I didn't know, like, when I wrote the books that I have, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know how to go about it. I had originally wrote my books in 1996, but I hand wrote it, and didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what avenues to go. I had no idea. It was a learn and go, figure it out, right? And that's what I had to do. And It's not like I was handed, you know, a sheet, what's going to work and what's not going to work. You have to figure it out for yourself, you know, and it's a bumpy road, you know, I've had, let's see, 4 different editors, I think three or 4 different editors that just plain out sucked, you know, and like I have one that's freaking fantastic. She's been with me ever since I found her. So, you know, and it's like I get like message on like when I do my promotions, you know, right before the cons or stuff like that, you know, but you know, I you got, you know, like as a writer or comic, whatever you're creating, you got to find your own path, because there could be 10 of us in a room and 10 different paths and 10 different, you know, ways of going about it. But but each destiny or each goal might be different on getting there, which it is, right? You know, you don't know what'll work for, you know, your specific comic book or drawing or book or whatever,
Not
right?
until you do it.
No, and it's true, but you know what? You might fail 20 times, but it's the 21st time that actually works.
Exactly.
You know, you don't know.
Michael, your video, you want me to play it?
Yeah, it's not, there's not much to it, but yeah.
All right, cool. Let's go to the videotape, folks. Dude, you said there's not much to it, but I feel hyped just watching it.
That's cool.
I feel all wrestling here. Wow.
I was inspired by the old Saturday Night's Main Event sort of
That's what I thought.
motif and whatnot. But yeah, it's
I could see him running down the ramp to that song.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Aren't they
now you gotta get a cosplayer to be Bigfoot and come out to the music.
Gotta have them
Saturday Night Main Event, aren't they doing Saturday Night Main Event this week?
It is. It's this weekend.
Oh.
It is.
I think they're bringing back the old WWE title too.
Ooh.
Are they?
It's for like one night only. Yeah, they did a thing today with it where Triple H handed Cody a thing and he opened it up and it was like, you know, glowing or whatever, and they said it was for one night only. So they said they were trying to do some nostalgia stuff for it. That's why they had Jesse Ventura to do commentary. And
well, I saw that
think,
he got he's doing a certain amount of dates and announcings and stuff. I think it's good. I like Jesse. You know.
Yeah, so I think they're bringing back either I don't know if I'm assuming maybe it's the Winged Eagle title maybe, or because I know Cody's he's always put that over as like the quintessential title for him. So.
You know, I really miss when it was all these little wrestling organizations, and you had the WWE, and they were doing their big thing. But I miss all the little ones. You know, I know that we're beginning to get a renaissance of that again, because I realized that there's smaller wrestling organizations all over the place again.
Well, they never really went away. Like there was 2018 there was a big sort of ballooning of it, and that's what led to AEW forming. And then they sort of took all the sort of top indie talent, and then WWE signed a bunch of them too. So then there was kind of a lull for a minute, but it's interesting to watch people kind of go back to what works. That so Gangrel runs a wrestling school for a promotion in Florida called CCW, and they sold out two different cities. They sold out Nashville, Tennessee, and Kissimmee, Florida on the same night.
Nice.
As an independent, right? Like they don't use names. They don't bring in big names like they have. Like they'll bring in like QT Marshall every once in a while or whatever, but like it's just their guys. Like they're homegrown guys and they're telling stories and letting people get invested. You know, that you can't really do the era of the super indie anymore.
No. Not anymore.
So,
You know,
but yeah, it's interesting to see guys starting to build territories like the way that they did.
Wrestling is fun. Well, it's always been fun, and I think the fun aspect of it is kind of like gone out for the business aspect of it. You know, I miss the fun.
What's always interesting to me now, like, you know, people play Madden or whatever, but people like to play that general manager mode and whatever. Like, I think, you know, for years, you know, when I was a kid, everybody wanted to be Hulk Hogan, and now I think people grow up and they want to be Dave Meltzer. So I don't know, you know, like maybe it's a more attainable goal, but like it's also, I don't know. It's just different. I think people like the ability to sort of bend things, you know, create things and shape things. So.
You know, I was a big fan of Rowdy Piper, and you know, his craziness and the whole and much energy he brought to it, you know. And then, you know, I loved The Rock and his crazy talk, and I loved all that stuff. I don't feel like you have that anymore. You don't have that talk.
It's gotten better. There was a period of time, like, so there was an evolution in wrestling. So like back in the 80s, almost all of those guys were like ex-athletes or bouncers or whatever, and they were just, you know, it was a job, right? Like, I mean, they loved wrestling, but like they were just trying to get through the day. They were trying to do, like, they were real masters of the craft, and that they were trying to do as much as they could with as little as possible.
Right.
And then there was sort of, I think UFC is the difference, because you have a ton of guys that would have gone into UFC had it existed, right? So now a lot of the legitimate tough guys went into UFC. And this isn't to say that these guys aren't tough, but you had like a lot of wrestling fans and sort of theater kids become wrestlers.
Yeah.
And then there was this whole era where I feel like they were just trying to prove that they were tough. And there was a lot of, like, there's a lot of videos of guys like slapping each other till their chests bleed and stuff and whatever. And to me, that's not the art form. I mean, I understand, like, gets people excited.
Yeah.
But the art form, right? I mean, if you're just hitting each other, you're just hitting each other.
Yeah.
The art form is to make it look like you're hitting each other and not hurt the other person at all.
Exactly. I love that, and that's why people are always wrestling may be what it is, but these guys are amazing at what they do, because, you know, one wrong move, you know, I think Frank was saying it before, one wrong move, and they're going to get really hurt. Or if something goes wrong, they're going to get, and we've seen that. We saw it live a couple of times where things just went the wrong way.
Sure. Well, they just had War Games a couple of weeks ago, and Bronson Reed jumped off the top of the cage and broke his feet.
Ankles, yeah.
So, I mean, and that's a tough injury. I mean, feet injuries are tough.
Yeah, they take a long time
for
to heal.
A big guy like him too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was They showed
and that's it. Edge broke his legs jumping off the cage. You know what I mean? Like, and so, like, and that's the thing, right? Like, if you do it right, like, they just had a thing where they broke up the New Day, and, you know, Big E broke his neck for real, and he hasn't been wrestling for a while, and then Kofi and Xavier turned on him, but, like, they just, you know, like, Big E went to hug him, and, like, Kofi just put his hand up, and that was more powerful. Like, they could have hit him with a chair or whatever, and it would have been, you know, but, like, if you're doing your job and your people are into your character and they're into your stories, you don't need to do that much.
Exactly.
You're selling it. You're selling, like, the little things. Yeah, 100%.
Things. I mean, if people care about your character, if people don't care about your character, if you're just another faceless dude wearing black boots and black trunks that are just doing strikes and head drops, like, that's every match. So
and you see it all the time. Like, you know, when the Undertaker retired, there was just this massive love for him. You know, when some of these wrestlers that we grew up with retired, there was just like, oh my God, they're retiring, and we just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. Sting was just at GalaxyCon, and if I was a wrestler and I looked at Sting, I would immediately get white face paint for my gimmick, because, like, Sting still looks like Sting, even though it's been 25, 30 years. But when the makeup comes off, he's very much a 60-some-odd-year-old man. But he doesn't look like it. He blacks his hair for every appearance, white face paint, and then it's just, you know, it fills in the wrinkles, I guess, or whatever. But, like, he just looks.
That's why makeup is amazing, folks.
Yeah. I'd be doing that. I mean, because there's tons of guys now that don't look like.
Definitely.
They don't look like what they look like.
The vice president elect with the nice little, you know, eyeliner. Oh my God, Tavares, let's play your video so people can check out what you have here as well, folks. Let's go to the videotape. Nomad.
10 years ago, Nomads was born. An action-packed fantasy saga about survival, family, and the bonds that hold us together. What began as a one-shot has now grown into a multi-issue epic. Set in a world where mankind is no longer at the top of the food chain, Nomads follows Hawk and Boar as they venture into hostile territory filled with monsters, mutants, and killer robots. It's a vicious fight to survive and save the remnants of humanity. Now, in a deluxe retail edition with a redrawn and expanded Chapter 1, updated colors, and an artist gallery, Nomads, the definitive Volume 1 will be available in digital, paperback, and a limited Kickstarter hardcover edition. This definitive Volume 1 will set the stage for the second half of Hawk's story. But first, I need your help to make it happen. By backing this project, you're not just getting the book, you're becoming a part of the Nomad's journey. Together, we can celebrate this milestone in Hawk's adventure. It's been a long road to get to this point, but this story couldn't have come this far without you. Together, we can bring Nomads to life and share it with a whole new generation of readers. Thank you for your support and being a part of this ride.
Dude, that music even takes like, hey, nice music choice. I loved it, man.
That's a dope video.
Yeah.
So I actually
really
had a buddy of mine do a 4-track soundtrack for the comic. And we did a little bit of a trade. I traded him art. I've been making album covers for him for a while now,
Nice.
and he made a couple tracks of music for me. And yeah, I think it pairs nicely. So thank you.
Oh, it definitely did. You know, it was a great video put together. The music, it just like enhanced it.
It was getting real Thundar the Barbarian vibes.
Exactly.
More than, you were saying Conan, but like I think the robots sort of push it more into
Thunder.
Oh yeah,
into
Oh, yeah.
Thundar territory. But yeah,
All
no,
that
it looks
stuff.
everything looks fantastic.
yeah. But well, right now my big kick is collecting Savage Sword of Conan. So, and every show I go to, I try to find some of those bins, those retro comics. I mean, I'll even get the reprints and stuff, but just something about the kind of that era of fantasy art is something that I've always been really into. A little bit like before my time, but I'm one of the younger people in my family. I had a lot of older cousins who were into comics and stuff, and so I was always getting hand-me-downs and all sorts of stuff like that.
Those are the best hand-me-downs, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all their,
We got a lot of
back
those.
issues, their back issues and duplicates. And,
Exactly. Ralph likes the comics. Give it to him. I got a ton of crap. It's great crap.
oh yeah.
You just gotta hope they're good collectors
Yeah.
and you don't get stuff with a ton of gaps.
Yep.
Oh, they were bad collectors, and you should see half those books. No.
Well, that's the thing. Even with the Savage Sword, I was just at a show a couple weeks back, and I'm looking through them, and I'm like, oh, this is $1. The guy's like, oh yeah, well the corner has a crease in it, and I'm like, that's fine. I'm gonna read these. I'm not gonna just put it on a wall. I'm gonna read it. So yeah, show me what you got. And I don't have this one, or here's a cool Norum cover, or here's Gil Kane, like all of it. So I'm just all my stuff kind of harkens back.
That whole business aspect of comics is just taking comics the wrong direction. I wish they go back to like the poor quality paper comics where they're cheaper and kids can buy them.
on print, yep.
I mean, I think now kids.
That.
I think kids now. I think kids read digital comics, and
Absolutely. But manga, don't underestimate manga. Manga is printed on newsprint. It's black and white.
Yeah, it's the original stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff they're kind of used to it. It's just a different kind of market than like the premium, glossy 100-pound paper that we get in our comic book stands today. Both are great. So again, like I'm a lover of it all. So give me your 7,000 issue X-Men. Give me your one shots. I'm one of those fans that it's like any version of the character that you like, still exist, whether or not another version comes out tomorrow. Like Absolute Batman, all this stuff. You see people up in arms about it, but really it's like that's just like another version that you can fall in love with. And if you don't like them, that's fine. You still have 100 years of Batman. There's 100 years. You can go watch Batman 89.
Your version of Batman.
Yeah. There's it's like Baskin Robbins. There's 52 flavors of them. So it's just like there's no big deal. More of it, in my opinion, the more of it, the merrier.
But you know how it is. It's like, I like vanilla. You need to like vanilla. Nobody else should like anything but vanilla.
Exactly. Well, you can eat all the vanilla you want. More for you. And I'm gonna get the strawberry, and and so on and so forth.
How dare you eat the strawberry?
Yeah.
Well, DC just started putting out collections of some of their better stories on smaller paper and selling them in bookstores.
Yeah,
those are neat. I actually was thinking about maybe doing something like that with Headlocked, just to also to consolidate space on my table.
Oh yeah, but that actually is one of the bigger issues I ran into. So I, as just someone who does it all myself, even handling like sourcing the printing and everything like that. I mean, I don't do a Kickstarter for every issue, but after a while, you start to realize like, oh, I got to reprint issue 1 again and again. It's a good problem to have, but after a while, it's like, well, I kind of just want to reprint all of these once in a collection, and so that way I don't have to keep stock. And because at the end of the day, like obviously there's a lot of different skill sets that go into this, especially if you're an indie and you're kind of doing everything yourself. It's like I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a designer, I'm a printer.
You wear all the pants. You get all the pants on.
Yeah, now I'm a shopkeeper. I gotta keep stock. I gotta go to shows. I gotta do all this stuff. And so anything that we can do to kind of like help, keep the process going, keep the books moving. So I think collections and things like that, and even looking at different formats is pretty interesting. But you don't want to leave out, the collectors and things like that. There's so many different ways to tackle it. So
I haven't done single issues. I'm doing this series in a single issue, but I haven't. I mean, none of my Headlock stuff. Like the first series I did is singles, but then I stopped doing them after that. I just went right to trade. But I don't know. Getting a $25,000 Kickstarter now seems like it might be tough.
Tell me about it.
It's interesting.
$5,000 Kickstarter.
Well, this was a lot tougher than I expected it to be. Just, I've been talking, people have been asking me for this for years, and I've been talking it up for the last year. And this has more enthusiasm than anything I've ever done.
Right.
Like offhand, but like social media, like post election, like social media has been a nightmare. Like Twitter. Yep. I used to get 75 to 150 like backers through Twitter links, and I think I have 10 right now. Facebook, I mean, I would always get like 100, 150 likes on my posts. I have like 5,000 friends, but now I'm getting like 40, and it's weird. Everything's throttled so far back, and like there was a period of time when Twitter was great and it was perfect, and you could just post a thing about needing a backer on Kickstarter, and you'd get a backer on Facebook, and you just get a backer. Like it was just so easy, and it took a sharp turn. Yeah, because I was surprised, like I said, at how hard this was to get to where we're at.
That's all I've been hearing all year is how hard Kickstarter has been this year.
Yeah. So, and I think it's the reach issue. And that's going to be the next problem I have to solve. I mean,
I also think so you had talked about how COVID had kind of interrupted comic stream and stuff like that. We kind of experienced a boom in 2021, 2022 in terms of like crowdfunding because there was such a content drought. Yeah. And I think we're experiencing kind of another bust a little bit because comics has always kind of gone in booms and busts. And Kickstarter has definitely impacted that and influenced it. I think the other thing, too, is because Kickstarter has become so mainstream, we have a lot of larger books on the platform.
Which doesn't make any sense to me,
Like right now, we literally have heavy metal and metal hurlant that we're competing with. They're so big, they suck the available resources out of that pool, out of that economy. So, there's people who regularly look for things to back on Kickstarter, but when you have such large projects, or like Berserker was massive, and it comes in, it just sucks the oxygen out of the room, and it's one of those things where we can't help it. It's just the timing of it. And I think that those projects are becoming more and more frequent.
I just don't think that people have a Kickstarter budget, right? Like, I think that if they want something, they get it.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been using Kickstarter since 2014 or 2015. I think I did my first one. And I mean, it was very easy to pull, like, I don't know. I mean, the smallest one I'd ever done up until now was 17, and that was on a book. It was a remaster of a book that I've been selling for 10 years.
Wow.
Wow.
But I also pull from a different audience, right? Like, I mean, I've always appealed to, I've always gone to the wrestling crowd more than the comics crowd.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To me, I think those big projects help on some level, because I think the hardest thing is to get somebody to sign up for Kickstarter. Like, getting them to just to sign up, because like that's a thing. I'm like, I'll just get it from you at the next show. And so everybody that you get, like, once they're signed up, like, that's another person that you can sell to.
Yeah, because once they're signed up, you can keep selling to them.
But I do think that social media has throttled everything.
Yeah.
That has any kind of crowdfunding words in it, because they want you to buy ads.
Yeah.
Twitter now is killing links because they don't want you to leave the site.
Dude,
so
I used to be able to stream the show to Twitter, and then Twitter decided that you can't stream unless you have a blue check.
Elon's a dipshit. But it sucks, man. It's just it makes and again, it was to your point earlier. Like, it's just another hat you have to wear, right? Like, I never expected to be a publisher, right? Like, I just wanted to write comic books, and everybody made it so hard. So I ended up having to do it myself, and I sort of accidentally became a publisher. But now I have to learn every new platform that comes out, on top of writing and wrangling all these wrestlers and artists and doing 30 shows, and it definitely can be exhausting.
Well, like I made a post about it yesterday. It's just like these other things, these other skills. I just don't care about social media the way I care about actually making and reading comics.
I agree.
And so it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm not a marketer. I'm an artist. I mean, hopefully it shows for itself. But when it comes to making posts and following trends and all this other stuff, I just don't have time for it. And but you kind of have to.
You have
to. Yeah.
It's like Endgame, right? There's 14 million ways you can do it, but there's only one way that works.
Yeah.
It's funny that you guys say that, because a lot of people always asking me, it's like, when are you going to publish something, Ralph? When are you going to publish something? And I tell them all the time that that's a whole other job I don't want to do. I don't mind keeping on writing, and sooner or later I'll probably put something out there. But that's actually, publishing is a whole other job. It's a whole other hat. And it takes away from the creative aspect of things, because now you have to pay attention to the publishing aspect of things, because you got to make sure that book gets done. I know both of you know what I'm talking about. You got all this work that has to be done in order to publish that book, and while you're doing that, everything else kind of falls to the side for a bit.
Yeah, but also, I mean, the other end of it is that it's never been easier to make something and put it out through Amazon, or even just printing something locally. Like, when I was first making comics, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I started really in 2015 making books, and it was kind of hard to find a printer that knew what a comic book was, like what the actual format or size. They all wanted to print them at like 8.5 by 11. It's like, no, this doesn't look right. It doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Because at the time when you're starting out, it's like, I just want to get to the point where this looks like a comic book, looks like what I'm seeing up like on the shelf. But now it's like there's a wide variety of ways that you can actually put something out. Like
so much ways.
Michael had mentioned people read web comics, things like Webtoon, those certain services, or even just on Instagram or on Facebook. Web comics are so prevalent now. So it's
Amazon.
It's so easy to put something out there,
Yeah.
but we're fighting harder than
Well-
ever to get eyeballs on stuff.
Here's a good question for both of you. If some guy's out there trying to print their book, where do you think they should go?
If they're trying to print, I think they should look locally. I know, so there's a lot of print shops around where I'm at, and by looking at them, you'd never even know that they made a comic book. I've worked at a print shop, and one of the best things you could do is you take a comic with you, take what you want it to look like with you, bring it in. Now, you have to shop around, you have to try it. And I'm not talking about Staples, and I'm not talking about Office Max.
Nope.
I'm talking about go to a printer, a print shop where printing is what they do, and you bring it in and you say, I want to make one of these, and try it. Try to get. But the other end of it too is there's a few other very reputable comic book printers,
Right.
Comics Wellspring, Mix'em. There's dozens of them, especially if you're looking in like United States, so that way you're not paying for overseas shipping. And look for something where it's low minimum. You look for a low minimum because you don't want to have to buy 2,000 copies off the bat and then sit on boxes of books forever. Unless you're in it for the long game.
Yeah.
But you really want to start out small,
Mhm.
start out local, so you're not paying shipping, and don't burn yourself out on that first book.
Yeah.
That's all very good advice. I would just say what he said. But that's really, I mean, that's really it. It's trial and error. I mean, the interesting thing that you were saying is that it's never been easier to make a comic, and I agree with that. And I see it in wrestling too, where the barrier to entry is so low that now every fan wants to do it.
Exactly.
And like there's no support structures in comics. Like almost every comics journalist is somebody who's trying to backdoor their way into writing for a company by doing puff pieces for editors and stuff. It's, like there's not a lot of people that are giving you solutions. There's just everybody trying to sort of, because there's so few spots.
Yeah.
But if everybody's making comics,
pass back and forth.
right? And if everybody's making comics, then nobody's got money to buy comics.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? Like, I mean, like somebody was like, oh, I know you lost people on Twitter, but what's, is Blue Sky helping? I'm like, I don't know. Blue Sky's just comics creators. They ain't got no money.
Exactly.
I know that.
Artists and writers selling to other artists and writers.
Right. Yeah. And that's it, right? Like there was a big joke for a long time that like indie comics was just the same $5 getting passed through Kickstarter.
It's kind of true.
But that's why I think it's important to figure out how to get outside of your circle. And that's why I like I was at GalaxyCon this week and I had a little QR code for Bigfoot, and if somebody backed it at the table, I would give them a free Tales from the Road comic, single issue.
See, that's a great idea. I think more people should do that.
And they could, whatever, they could have canceled it after. I mean, so far nobody has, but like the hard part is, right, like somebody's got to stand there and put their credit card information in if they're not a Kickstarter backer, but some people did it. It got me a couple. I mean, I got a large $225 backer out of it. So
nice.
I think it's just always important because, like you said, it's never been easier for people to make comics, but it's never been harder to get in front of people.
Exactly.
Because there's so much noise. Like the other day, I was like, oh, there's a TV show on Apple Plus or a movie or whatever with George Clooney and Brad Pitt in it, and I never heard of it.
Yeah,
like two of the biggest stars in in the country, whatever, and I'd never even heard of it. Never even crossed my field of vision. So, like, if they're not getting seen, then you double super secret for sure aren't going to see my stuff. So, like, you just have to
that's why shows are so important too. I mean, because I'm compared to you, I'm small peanuts. I really only stick to Michigan, doing the smaller shows around here. I do a couple out of state, but it's those shows where like I do it one year and maybe I do okay, But it's the second year when
Mhm.
people are like, hey, I recognize that character, or I recognize this
Mhm.
book, and they actually come back and come through.
Yep.
It's a war of attrition sometimes.
Yeah, but also it's recognition, right? So
Mhm.
you were saying something about like people coming and buying prints of superheroes and stuff, which is very common because we're battling that familiarity. We have
Yeah.
100 years of Batman, and
Mhm.
I've only been making Nomads for a couple years. Someone has never seen that before in their entire life, but they've seen Batman a million times. They know it's good, they know they like it, so they're going to go with the safe bet. And so it's kind of one of those things also where you kind of have to be consistent and make that association, or meet people in a way, make that connection. Like you're saying at shows, you're talking with them, you're giving them a sample, they're backing your project, but they're making that connection with you. You're a real person. You're not just some random person on the internet. And in a lot of
In the
ways,
computer screen.
yeah, right.
So I've spent the last year thinking about that, so I took a little bit of time off, and I was just thinking about how do you, right? Because I do double independent stuff. I'm not doing branded stuff, right? So like I'm indie comics, indie wrestling, whatever. So like, and there's people, obviously they're very brand specific. So like
Yeah.
one of the changes I made this year is there was a company that makes title belts, and they for years have been asking me to make one for me because I do so many shows or whatever. So I started, I had them make me a title belt that says Headlock King of Wrestling Comics on it, and it's a nice TV quality belt. I
Yeah.
bring it to shows, I put it on the table, it gets people over, like, oh, if you want to take a picture, sign up for my Substack or whatever.
Nice.
And then people will do that. There's a QR code. We do art prints of wrestlers, like, famous wrestlers,
Mhm.
and that gets people over, because the trick is, right, like, they got to know what you're about,
Yeah.
and they got to know, like, because you got to get them to stop and look, right? And like Comic Cons are so overstimulating,
Oh my God.
and everything looks alike, so one of the things I did at San Diego when I first started out is I would go to CVS and buy a white poster board and just write wrestling fans, and I would put an arrow up, and I would put it on the bottom corner of my table, and everybody saw that, and nobody saw my $500 banner that but everybody would come up and be like, I'm a wrestling fan. And like, sometimes you just got to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, you got to figure out a way to get their attention long enough to consider you. And that's the big fight. Cause I mean, like they say tweets last like 17 seconds because people are scrolling.
Yep.
And you got to have that thing. And that's it. Like, and I do these panels about breaking into comics. And I always tell people it's never been easier to make comics, but it's never been harder to get an audience. And you have to go find your audience.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. And that's what I did. Like, I started selling my book out of my backpack at wrestling shows. And I would put it on the message boards for the company. I'd be like, yo, I'm sitting in this seat, whatever, come buy a comic. People would come up and give me $5 and I give them a comic.
You hustle.
And that's how it started. But that's what you have to do. Like, you can't wait for people to come to you because they won't.
I agree with you, Michael. I feel like
I
most
see it all the
feel
time.
like people should come to them. Like, here's my book. I made it.
And then, when there's a disruption in the system, right? Like, social media has been disrupted now. Like, you got to find a new way around it because, everybody's making great stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the shit. Like, everybody's making incredible stuff. I go to cons all the time and I'm blown away by how many great books are out there.
Yeah.
And people just walk by them because it's just on the table, right? Like, you gotta get people, but you can't be like, hey, come look at my stuff, because that's too much. Like, they got to come to you. You got to
you scare them away if you carnival.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
but you have, right.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen Henri at a con. He
too much.
Dude, that is a hustler.
It's too much. It's too much.
Dude, he amazes me. Just watching him like work people, talk to people, and and he's not doing that thing where he's being annoying. He's just having a conversation with somebody.
I don't know. I've definitely heard people feel that he's on the wrong side of that.
It's possible,
but I don't I don't hard sell anything. Like, I'm not gonna push anybody. Like, if you want to read it, you want to buy it. But I'm not gonna be like, oh, limited time, come on, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not doing any of that.
No, but
like,
yeah.
But you gotta engage it.
But like so I have my books. So I have a banner that I have that probably, what did you say, Ralph? About 6 foot banner?
I think so. Yeah.
It's a 6 foot banner, has a picture of my character, but I put it right by the table where it's an eye catcher. You know, you definitely have to have something that eye catches, but I don't, if people like, oh, and they stop and they look at the whatever, the posters or my banners, as you guys could see, it's something that attracts and lures people. So about a year ago, Ralph had to. So I'm going to tell you something, Ralph. I haven't been telling you. So so about a year ago, me and Ralph went to Rhode Island.
Yep.
It was a solid show, Rhode Island Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm on. Ralph gives me this platform to come on, kind of do my thing with whatever shows. He gave me a great suggestion, and I took it. Of course, I haven't told you what I was doing. So just why he's laughing. I don't know if you remember. So
I remember.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead,
So
keep talking.
okay. So it's being worked on, and then so he suggested, he's like, Frank, he goes, you got all this wonderful stuff. He goes, your books and everything, and you got great content, you got posters, whatever, t-shirts someplace on there. I'm getting new ones. And then he's like, why don't you come have someone do a cardboard cutout of your character, the master? So I'm like, that's a really good idea. And I just found an artist to do it. So, like I like to walk around when I go to the cons, I go from anywhere from MegaCon to Boston to GalaxyCon, mostly on the East Coast, Southwest, whatever, and I've done well. Started out the bottom, like I was kind of saying, like no one kind of helped me along this business. I kind of had to figure out things for myself, and I've had great support, through the way, and everything like that. But I look around and I see great stuff, you know. I mean, at all these different cons, all these independent writers or, comic books and stuff like that, man. But, everybody's doing their thing. They're trying to sell them things. I've gotten to the point where when I'm in Artist Alley or wherever, I would have people, like, I hear them talk. They're like, "Oh crap, we're next to this guy." I'm like, "You talking about me?" you know, you know, talking about me. Not that I want to be intimidating, which I don't. I want people to sell their stuff just rightfully so. But like, he's like, "Oh, how'd you do what you do?" And that was about 2 years ago. I had someone say that to me, in Awesome Con. He's like, "Oh man," he's like, "Why'd you have to be next to me?" That's what an artist happened to say to me. I'm like, "Wow, you got some kind of cahoons to kind of go and say that." But
No bedside manner. No
No, at
bedside
all.
manner.
no, definitely not. And I'm from New York, so that doesn't exist. But hey, it's I'm respectful, and I was respectfully kind back. I could not have been. And I'm like, listen, everybody's got their own materials, their own content that they're gonna make and put out there. We're all doing the same thing and trying to get our word out there and stuff like that. I was respectful, but like I just don't believe that someone had the cahoons to actually say that. But like I said, I started out from the bottom. Didn't know anything. Wrote this in 1996. Didn't know what to do with it. And my dad kind of inspired me to kind of, write and push me to write it. So here you go. I got 3 Dark Legends and 1 Go to Gob. So from writing that. So I mean, I get I've gotten people like, "Oh, when are you coming back? When are you coming back with the third one?" Third one I just kind of dropped not too long ago. But I've gotten people that write on my Instagram. I promote it on Instagram, on Facebook. I would love for these books to be in a Barnes and Nobles or something like that. But um, I do extremely well with them. I mean, I usually do anywhere between 10 and 12 cons a year, but I mean, I've gotten to the point where I don't do the small ones anymore. I do mediocres, but like I do MegaCon, which in the Comic Con universe, that's a big one. Like I'm trying to mix up some book cons. Cody Cobb is more something that you would bring to like it's more like a Jason Bourne kind of type of story. So bringing that to a Comic Con, I've noticed that doesn't do as well as I would like, But like when you go into a Comic Con, you want science fiction and fantasy, and that's what a lot of those are. So as you can see, the Three Dark Legends definitely have that allure of fantasy and science fiction, and I constantly getting people that message me on Instagram that follow me, a zillion people will take your business card and they usually don't do anything with it, but the ones that do follow me, it's like, oh, when's the third one coming out? Because it's been a 7-year gap between the second one and now the third one.
It was that long? I didn't feel like it was that long.
Yeah, it was like 2018, if I did that right.
I can see what it is. 2018 still feels like it was a couple of years ago to me.
Yeah,
and it hasn't left my brain that's a couple of years ago. Now it's been many years ago.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I mentioned 2017. So,
see, that's
yeah, exactly. So,
Frank, tell them where you're going to be. Tell them where they can find you. So that way they can get for you.
If they can't make it to Ocean City Comic Con this weekend, they could always find me online anywhere on Instagram at frank.destefano, or you could go frankdestefanoauthor.com. You can find me. You could order the books. The other two are on the other two are on Amazon. The Two Dark Legends are on Amazon. The other Cody Cobb and the Dark 3 is on my website directly, and you could always order them. And I've gotten to the point where I've had I had like maybe about 300 400 followers when I started out on Instagram. Now I think I got like 79 or 80,000, where I basically built that following from the bottom. And people who don't understand, when you talk to different artists, hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do this? Like I mentioned, like we all took out a different road, but the same goal was to get to, where you're getting your content out there, how you're marketing it or whatever. I get
what we were just talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get people that message me, wait, when are you coming back to this area? When are you coming back? Hey, when's your third book coming out? I get that, and I tell people I'm not shy, if I bump into new writers, I always try to want to help new writers, because that's someone else. And people don't forget that either, like when people stop by and like, oh, how'd you, oh, we want to get ideas. Oh, how's the best time, how do you write your stuff? And people's like, how long does it take you? And if I tell you guys, if I literally not working my regular job at Coca-Cola, I could sit down and write the Dark Legend maybe 3 weeks, maybe, which is quick.
I don't know how you can do that.
I know. I've told you that, but it's it was my first book, right? And then it's just what grew my name. It grew my brand. So, I'm trying to come out with finding time to write is another thing too. And then like I just not even be thinking about that story and another pops up. It's just one of those things that I'm just so in tune with it. Just like everything that you guys were talking about tonight, right? Your comics, and stuff like that, and the stories that you have, you guys are so in tune with it, and it's something that you like to do. You like to put out the different stories and the different versions and stuff like that. Like when you're in tune with it, it's the love of it, man. It's like that's something that you can't make someone feel, right?
Exactly. That's really important.
It's if you feel it, then you do it. And and then other people, when you go to cons or wherever you're bringing it, they feel it like you know, like I when
Oh
when
yeah,
I
they definitely can sense your enthusiasm through your
Oh,
work.
definitely, yeah. Especially
know?
when you're talking, yeah.
well,
That's
it's
why
funny.
one of the big things about the show is the fact that I find people and I talk to them and I see their passion. I'm like, okay, we got to show this passion to the rest of the world.
Right. Well, this is what you did, and you film them and you get it
Right,
out
right.
on social media and the cons and stuff like that. It's great.
I see that we're at the 140 mark. So, Nomad, why don't you tell the people where they can find you, all the good stuff? Tell them, go ahead.
Yeah, so you can find me at tavarezart.com. That's my website. It's got links, all my socials, got links to my Kickstarter. You can look for Nomads Definitive Volume 1 on Kickstarter, or if you find me on Instagram at tavarezart, and you can see all my work and find all my links there as well. Yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys at a show one day. And
That's a possibility.
thanks for having me on.
All right, now, Michael, go for it. Tell the people where they can find you.
All of my socials are Headlocked Comic. It's one word, and it's all me. It's our web store. It's whatever. If I'm on a platform, it's there. I'm on just about everything. And then you can go to Kickstarter and search Friday Night Bigfoot. We have 7 days left, as you can see on the screen. There's a ton of cool things that you can still get. We'd really like to really want this. I got high hopes for this series, and really like to see people come take the ride with us. And then also, just on a side note, whatever, we have Vampiro number 3 is coming out in 2 weeks. I would say that I know what number 1 versus number 2 on the ordering goes with Diamond. So with the announcement of the TV thing, that number 2 is probably going to be the lightest, the smallest of the print runs. So I would say do yourself a favor, get on now.
That says a lot because Vampiro is selling pretty good.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's great. I mean, we're doing good, and we're trying to get a Spanish language version made because he's got a super popular podcast in Mexico.
Nice.
I want to put one more thing into your head, you guys, while you're here, real quick. So, talking about attracting people to the table, right? And this is one of the things that I did this year to go with my belt. You give people a free experience, right? So my backdrop, I made it. It is let's see. It's the background of a wrestling ring.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah.
All right. So like the trick is, right? Like when people come by, they need to know that it's wrestling.
Right.
So they see wrestling, they come, and I let them take pictures in my booth, and then you have an opportunity to engage them. And you're giving them a free experience, and it's also a thing that you can sell to a convention to make you a more attractive guest.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, listen, I have this, set up. I let people come take free pictures. It's a very popular attraction, whatever. And then that will get you over better with shows too. It's been really, really good for me. It's been a nice conversation starter. Anytime I see somebody with a Dallas Cowboys gear on, I'm like, hey, you want to come touch the championship? It's the closest you're ever going to get to one. But then I sell books to people, right? Like it's a conversation starter. But like,
that is a great conversation starter.
I encourage all creatives. I mean, that's really how you have to think. Like to how do you get people into your orbit? So I don't know. I saw a booth at a wrestling show, and it sort of just rewired my brain. There were these 2 guys, indie guys, doing they had like construction worker gimmicks, and their table was wrapped in orange, and they had high vis vests.
Oh wow!
Traffic cones and stuff, and I was like, shit, exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Right, like that's you're cut out so much. They get to the table, they know what they're doing. So that's what I've been trying to do, and that's what I kind of encourage everybody to do.
Well, you have to do, yeah.
It's providing somebody with experience, making sure that you're selling what you're selling. I'm sure you could do some cool fantasy backdrop, right? And have like a sword or shield or something, and let people come take pictures, because you can get like a cloth thing really inexpensively and just bungee it to your pipe and drape.
Definitely.
So,
like
a solution.
Oh yeah.
No, I take that. Like I found an artist that the artist that I have she's overseas, so she's from Bulgaria. So like until Ralph suggested that, I'm like, fuck. I'm sorry. I knew. See, I was the first one that dropped it tonight. So I'm like, that's a really, really sick idea. And I'm like, hey, when someone comes around, because I don't like if someone like I knows like how I don't watch the body language, I watch the eyes, right? Like they could stop and whatever, and then they always like that thing is just like an eye-catching piece.
Definitely.
Walk by the banner, and then now if you come over, and then I have to find a place where you position that way. Now someone I could walk around and someone I have it where someone could basically take the picture and hold up the books or whatever if they want to get a picture with me, whatever, and they take a picture with now this cardboard cutout or something like that where now they're standing with the character, which
Gimmick,
I think
people, gimmick.
yeah, it's like when he suggested that, I'm so grateful for that. Like just thinking about that idea and you thinking out loud, and then I'm like, and like I could go back. I've never seen anybody at a con with that either. Like like just people just don't have that idea. I think it's a fantastic idea, especially if you have the character and the lore like that, like the banner does, where it's an eye-catching piece, or the covers are just gorgeous artwork, like something like that. It's you want to do something to attract and to build. It's like you want to see people, your hard work and dedication. You want to see them you get rewarded, but you also want to have the interaction with new fans, and then they're like, all right, you got a new fan for life, right? They start following you and to see, all right, where you're going to be. Hey, when's your new book? When's your new comic coming out? When's your new content coming out? And they follow you.
Yeah,
And
it's what all of you guys have been saying. You need to foster this, these people. You need to build your crowd. You need to build your audience. And Kickstarter works best when you have a built-in audience already, because that gives you something to work on. It lets you rise up, because you already have a base to get higher on. Speaking of which, I see Mr. Nat has joined us. He slid into the room there. Is he? Are you there? There you go, Nat. So I'm about to start doing all the usual stuff over here. Like, of course, Mata Sorcier, our co-host on Mondays, has a new art book that she's working on. It's some fancy shit. And folks, you should go follow her because she's an amazing artist. She's another one of those people that does the art, the lettering, all the stuff herself to create her great Sacrimony and Buddy and Friends books. And she's decided to put a book together of all that beautiful art. So right now here's a good thing, folks. You ever ask how you can support creatives? Well, when the Kickstarter first starts, just like our friends were mentioning here, there's this thing where you sign up to get notified. And if you sign up to get notified and give the project enough followers, it actually puts you in a better place in the algorithm when the Kickstarter starts. So right now, that's where Mata is. I think she is releasing this first or second week of January. So right now she's at the sign up to get notified. Go, folks, sign up to get notified. Go get her stuff. She is an amazing artist. Of course, she also has her new, old because she reopened it, Sticker Hobo pieces here. And they're just, if you like your D&D and you like your role playing and you just like good stuff, she has a lot of amazing stickers. Beautiful stuff. And she has a couple of pieces of jewelry from when she was making jewelry. So, folks, there's a lot of stuff to pick from here at the Sticker Hobo. And as we were talking about earlier, I hate publishing. So somebody has decided to take this out of my hands because we suck at comics. And we do, folks. We suck at comics. And if you guys want to see a written Ralph piece done, because I'm not publishing it myself, it will be here in We Suck at Comics. And, of course, if you guys know Shadow Rabbit, he has done a drawn art piece. And it will be attached to my story. So go ahead. This one is at sign up to get notified. It will be they finally gave us a date, January 28th. It will be kicking off. So folks, go sign up to get notified. they're already very close to 100. So get them to 100, and again, it puts them in a great place in the algorithm.
You're at 90 now.
Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I had to bring back this beauty here because it's just been a wrestling 2 weeks. And Bomb Shelly and the Atomic. I'll let the video speak for itself as Nat begins to prepare himself to tell me what it is we're forgetting.
Hi, I'm Shelly the Bombshell.
Hi, I'm John Avina. I am one of the co-writers of Bomb Shelly and the Atomic.
And I was super lucky to work with Avina Comics to come up with this amazing new comic called Bomb Shelly and the Atomic, based off of yours truly, but the fictional version. It's super awesome, and I hope you guys will check out our Kickstarter.
In our story, Shelly is the gatekeeper of the Atomic, a special extraterrestrial energy that allows her to perform moves and acrobats only available to the guardians of the Atomic, and that's who Shelly is, and it's trying to be taken away by a ringside promoter who's looking to create like the ultimate wrestler, and they need the Atomic to do so.
Our Kickstarter, so that we can keep bringing you these awesome stories. We have 7 different variants, so lots of different options for the covers. Please check it out. Order yours today. You are not going to be disappointed.
Comic issue 1 is already complete and ready for print. We just need your help to get the funds together to get our book printed and out to you, our backers. We do have different covers. We have photo covers of Shelly that she has provided for us. We also have different comic book covers that were given to us by some of the other Avina Comics artists, and they're all available for you exclusively through our Kickstarter. If you're a fan of Harley Quinn, Power Girl, or any of those like really bold comic book characters, you're gonna love this comic.
So, folks, go check that out. It's just been a wrestling love fest here for the past couple of weeks, especially when I went to go see Kaiju Big Battle. And boy, that was fun. Mr. Nathan, are we forgetting something?
All right, so aside from our usual suspects, which would be Pat Shand, who has not 1, not 2, but 3 Kickstarters, all currently going simultaneously.
Damn, Pat.
My goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, he makes up most of the list this week, but we do have one other Kickstarter going on by our friends over at Project Analysis, issue number 5. It has a little over a week still left to go, so check it out if you are interested.
I didn't know he had another one. Okay. Well, that's good.
That's it.
That's everything. You guys have any last words to say?
I know we
Thanks
talked
for
a
having
lot,
me.
right?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
All of them at the same time. Well, folks, I think we talked a lot. This has been a great geek out. You can tell because we're like an hour over our time.
Had a lot
Those
of
are the fun days. Those are the great days. All right, folks. With that, I will say what I always say here. I'll press the button, and where it stops, nobody knows.